I used to think that Oak Hollow was the kind of neighborhood you only saw in real estate commercials. Sun-dappled driveways, pristine lawns edged like carpets, smiling joggers, golden retrievers trotting beside strollers. It looked safe. It felt safe. But now, even thinking about that place makes my skin crawl. When I first moved in 2 years ago, after my divorce, it felt like a fresh start. A small two-bedroom, just me and Rex, my mutt with a crooked tail and a heart of gold. I worked from home as a graphic designer, kept to myself mostly, and tried to stay out of everyone's way. The HOA had rules, a lot of rules, but I figured if I just paid my dues and kept the lawn decent, I'd be fine. Then I met Mr. Harold Wright. He was the kind of neighbor who showed up with a smile and a printed copy of the neighborhood bylaws in a plastic sleeve. Always dressed neat, polos, tucked-in shirts, pressed khakis. Said he'd been HOA president for going on 15 years now. Said it with pride, like someone bragging about a long marriage. Always watching, always knowing who parked too long in the street or left their trash cans out past noon. He was polite, too polite, and when he smiled, his eyes never quite smiled with him. I never forgot how he looked at me the day I moved in, scanning me up and down like I was a puzzle piece he didn't quite trust to fit. At the time, I chalked it up to nosy old man syndrome. I was wrong. People in the neighborhood still whisper about Dan Mercer, though they try not to. Dan lived here before me, 5, maybe 7 years ago. Didn't follow the lawn rules. Left his garbage out a few extra hours. Skipped HOA dues for a few months. Nothing criminal, just difficult. Then someone smashed his mailbox. Weeks later, his cat was found cut open on his porch. Not long after that, Dan disappeared. They said he was drowning in debt. Skipped town. But that never made sense. Who just leaves their entire life behind like that? 3 years ago, it happened again. Shayna Bennett, sweet woman, maybe early 30s, moved in with her 2 little kids. She didn't like being told what to do, especially not by the HOA. Complained loudly at meetings, ignored citations. One day, her kids were found wandering the front lawn, crying. Shayna was gone, never came back. Her house was quietly resold a few months later. The official line? Domestic dispute. She ran off. Funny how no one ever questioned that. I didn't think much of it at first. Bad things happen. People disappear. That's the world, right? But then I lost my job. The company I freelanced for downsized. Suddenly, I was scraping by on scraps, trying to land gigs while watching my savings drain. My lawn, once decent, started to look scruffy. I didn't have the money to keep up. Got a citation for overgrown edges 1 week, another for faded paint on the mailbox the next. Then came the note. Reminder, HOA dues are expected by the 15th. Compliance ensures community safety. Community safety? That's when I started noticing things. Late at night, while I worked by the window, I felt eyes on me. Glimpsed shadows shifting across the yard. My porch light would flicker out, even though I'd just changed the bulb. Trash cans ended up perfectly realigned, even when I'd forgotten to bring them in. And through it all, Mr. Wright, smiling, helpful, watching. He offered to mow my lawn just to help out. Left a fresh can of paint on my doorstep for the mailbox, unasked. I told myself he was being kind. That's what neighbors do. But something about the way he looked at me, like he was taking notes in his head, calculating something, just behind those pale eyes, like he already knew what would happen if I didn't get back in line. I wish to God I'd listened to my gut back then. But I didn't. Not until it was too late. Not until Rex went missing. And by then, the monster had already started digging. It began with a note, slipped under my front door, typed on stiff white paper, unsigned. HOA rule number 17 violation. Lawn height exceeds 3 inches. Please correct within 48 hours to maintain community standards. I stared at it, for a long moment, blinking through exhaustion. My mower was old, sure, and the blades missed patches here and there, but I'd cut the grass just a few days before. This was nitpicking, someone watching for the smallest infraction. I crumpled it and tossed it aside. I had more pressing problems, like rent, food, finding enough freelance work to cover both. 2 days later, another note appeared. Reminder, HOA rule number 5. Trash receptacles must be returned to designated location within 2 hours of pickup. Second notice. I hadn't even put them out. I'd completely forgotten that week, but there they were, tucked neatly back along the side of the house, in perfect alignment, like I'd done it myself. Or like someone had done it for me. My skin prickled. That night, while I worked on a project, from the couch, I saw the porch light flicker, then die. I checked the switch. Nothing. I replaced the bulb the next morning. It worked fine. But come nightfall, around 11:30, it clicked off again. This became a pattern. No matter what I did, it would turn off at exactly the same time. Rex started acting weird too. He'd sit at the back door for hours, ears pinned, tail still, growling softly. Always toward the fence that separated my yard from Mr. Wright's. The same spot, every night. Mr. Wright, meanwhile, seemed to grow more present. He'd wave from his porch when I left in the morning, ask about work when I returned, offer me muffins, lend me tools I hadn't asked for. Thought you might need this weed trimmer, he'd say with a warm smile, his voice as sweet as honey. You've got some wild patches. We can't have that, can we? I thanked him, always politely, but something about his tone, like I was a child being gently scolded. His eyes never smiled. One evening, he brought over stew, said he made too much. I didn't eat it. Then the digging started. At first I thought he was repairing his sprinkler system. But the digging didn't stop. Each night, under the glow of a motion light or a headlamp strapped to his balding head, he toiled in the dirt, hauling wheelbarrows of soil, stacking stones, planting nothing. Sometimes he whistled, a cheerful, tuneless melody that sliced through the stillness of the night. I began sleeping poorly, always half awake, always listening. One night, around 2 a.m., I got up for water and saw movement outside. My blinds were half open. I froze. Across the yard, half hidden in shadow, someone stood by the fence, still, facing my window. My throat tightened. I ducked back, heart racing, palms clammy. When I looked again, the figure was gone. I started keeping the curtains closed after that. 3 days later, Rex went missing. I let him out early that morning. He bounded toward the fence like always, tail wagging. I made coffee, checked emails, and then realized I hadn't seen him come back. I called him. Whistled, walked the yard. Nothing. Panic set in. I canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors, calling his name. No one had seen him. No cars had screeched. No yelps. He was just gone. I saved Mr. Wright's house for last. He opened the door almost immediately, like he'd been waiting. Oh dear, he said, frowning. I haven't seen Rex, but I'll keep an eye out. You know how dogs are. Curious little things. Behind him, the backyard was half hidden. But I caught a glimpse of something new. A tarp over a mound of earth, fresh soil beside it. I thanked him and walked away, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't let go. That evening, I circled back, waited until dusk, when the lights went off on his porch and the neighborhood settled into its nighttime hush. I made my move. I crept around the side of his house, careful not to disturb the gravel. My breath felt loud in the quiet. I moved past the shed, toward the corner where Rex always growled. There, behind the shed, was a patch of dirt less packed than the rest, looser, recently disturbed, and sticking from the soil, barely visible, was a strip of red nylon, frayed, dirty, but unmistakable. Rex's collar. I didn't cry. Not yet. My body went still, cold. Then I turned and left. I had seen enough. Something was wrong in Oak Hollow. something terrible, and it had been watching me all along. Mr. Wright always knows. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with the lights off, eyes fixed on the wall, Rex's collar clutched in my hand. The faint metallic tang of rusted metal and dirt clung to it. My stomach churned. Morning came, gray and cold. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. A collar wasn't proof. It could be coincidence, could be planted. I had to be sure. That evening, as twilight crept over Oak Hollow, I borrowed a shovel from my neighbor across the street. Said I had a stubborn tree root to deal with. He didn't ask questions. I waited until 1 a.m. The neighborhood slumbered. Mr. Wright's lights were out, and the glow from his garden had dimmed. I crept over the fence, every creak of wood sounding like thunder. His backyard smelled of mulch and lavender. Neatly arranged stone pathways coiled through flower beds and bushes trimmed to geometric perfection. But I wasn't there to admire the landscaping. I made my way to the corner, the one with the fresh soil and the faint outline of something recently dug and filled. The ground gave easily, too easily. I stabbed the shovel into the dirt and worked quickly, but quietly. After maybe 10 minutes, I hit something soft. Not soil. I froze. My hands trembled as I scraped away the last of the dirt. A bundle emerged, plastic-wrapped, duct-taped, smeared with mud. I peeled it back slowly. Rex. His fur was matted, eyes closed like he was asleep, mouth slightly open. I covered my mouth and turned away, gagging. The smell hit me a second later. Rot, earth, and something sweetly wrong. I didn't wait. I called animal control, told them a dog had been stolen and buried. I didn't mention the rest. Not yet. They arrived in under an hour. Flashlights scanned the yard. One of them, a younger guy, knelt beside me as I pointed to the spot. He looked shaken. "You sure you want to dig more?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "All of it. Something's not right." He hesitated, then nodded. They dug, carefully, deeper, wider, and then they found it. First, cloth, rotted, a sleeve. Then, bone, a femur, I think, human. There was silence. Another body followed, the remains twisted, collapsed like a broken mannequin. One wore a thin chain with a cracked glass pendant. I recognized it. I'd seen the photo in a news article. Shayna Bennett, the single mom who vanished. Her face flashed in my mind, smiling, unaware. The second skeleton was older, bones brittle. A tattered leather wallet lay just beneath the ribcage. One of the animal control officers picked it up with gloved hands. Inside, a faded ID card, the name still legible. Dan Mercer. I staggered back. The yard was silent except for the chirping of crickets and the occasional snap of a shovel slicing the earth. By the time the police arrived, I was sitting on the patio steps, arms wrapped around my knees, dirt smeared on my hands. I couldn't speak at first. They didn't need me to. Mr. Wright stood at his front door, in a robe, holding a mug of tea. He didn't run, didn't protest, didn't even blink when they cuffed him. He looked at me, eyes calm and flat. "They didn't belong here," he said, his voice soft. Like that was explanation enough. Inside his house, they found a filing cabinet, neat, alphabetical folders. Every resident, violations, notes, dates. Shayna's file had red ink scrawled across the top. Status, resolved. Dan Mercer's file read the same. My name was there too. The latest entry, multiple lawn violations. Refuses to engage. Possible correction required. I couldn't breathe. Neighbors gathered outside, robes and slippers. Shocked faces in the porch light. Murmurs, whispers. Some wept. Some stared at Wright's house like they were seeing it for the first time. The board dissolved the HOA within a week. No one argued. No one wanted that power anymore. No one wanted to be Mr. Wright. Oak Hollow was never the same. Within days, the media descended. Reporters with cameras and microphones swarmed the gates, eager to broadcast the dark truth hiding beneath the manicured charm. Drone shots of Mr. Wright's house flooded the internet, captioned with headlines like HOA horror and the quiet killer next door. Neighbors who once prided themselves on perfection now spoke in hushed tones, faces pale, eyes hollow. They couldn't reconcile the image of Mr. Harold Wright, the man who'd handed out Halloween candy with a smile, who hosted garden club teas, who knew everyone's dog's name, with the man led away in cuffs. Turns out, no one ever really knew Mr. Wright. Right. The HOA had crumbled. Board members resigned en masse, some out of shame, others out of fear. The bylaws and fines that once ruled every blade of grass were thrown out. The phrase HOA violation became taboo. Lawns grew wilder. Mailboxes leaned, and no one said a word. People whispered about the files found in Wright's study. Detailed records, photographs, notes scribbled like a diary of judgment. Who watered too much, who parked half an inch over the line, who failed to edge their lawn. And chillingly, notes like mine, correction pending. I couldn't stay. Even after the news cycle moved on and the barricades came down, I felt eyes in every shadow. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the hedges sent my heart pounding. They called me a hero, said I'd stopped a monster, but I didn't feel like one. I felt lucky. Barely. I buried what was left of Rex under the oak in my backyard. Just a small stone to mark it, no inscription. I didn't want the attention. I packed slowly over the next month, giving away most of what I owned. The house never felt like mine again. It was a space that had flirted with death, too close to that perfectly tended yard of nightmares. When I left, I took only a few essentials: my laptop, some clothes, and the stone from Rex's grave. I kept it in a cloth pouch in the glove box, a reminder of how easily horror can wear a smile. As I pulled away from Oak Hollow one last time, I didn't look back.